Hello, in this lesson we will be solving for a radius in cones and cylinders. So to solve for a radius, you're basically going to use the same process that we were using in our previous lesson, which is to use ESA and solve for r. The one thing you're going to need to know is that you will have to isolate the r squared first, and then we will be taking the square root of both sides. Let's take a look at an example. In this first one it says the height is 4 inches, and it is the height of a cylinder, and the volume is 324 pi cubic inches. What is the radius? So we're given the height and we're given the volume, and we know that it's a cylinder. So let's take our cylinder formula. V is equal to pi r squared h, and let's just plug in what we know. So the volume is 324 pi equals pi times radius squared times the height, and the height is 4. So we can do this in pieces if we want, or we could do this all at the same time. It's completely up to you. If you want to do it in pieces, I think I'll divide both sides by pi first, and therefore my pi's will cancel. So I have 324 is equal to 4r squared. Now I'm going to get rid of the 4 by dividing both sides by 4. So 81 is equal to r squared. Okay, so maybe you can think in your head, what squared is 81? I know what squared is 81, and that would be 9. But if you don't know, what you're going to do is you're going to do the opposite of squaring a number. And the opposite of squaring a number is the square root. And whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So the square root of r squared, this square will actually undo the square root, which makes it r. The square root of 81 is 9. If you don't know what the square root is, one of the things that we can do is take our calculator. You'll want to locate the square root button on your calculator. Mine is right here. You might be able to see my cursor moving on it. It's above the x squared. Now with your calculator you may have to decide or figure out, do you type in the number first and then the square root, or do you hit the square root button first and then the number? It's different on different calculators. For my calculator, I know I have to hit the square root button first, and I have to use the control button to access it, and then I'm going to put the 81 in. And the square root of 81 is 9. So you'll want to play around with whatever calculator you have. Okay, let's try another problem. The volume of a cylinder is 197.9 centimeters cubed. So again, we're dealing with a cylinder, and we have volume. The height is 7 centimeters. What is the radius? This one is rounded to the nearest whole centimeter. Okay. So let's start with ESA. So volume is equal to pi r squared h. My volume, it says, is 197.9 equals pi times r squared times the height, which is 7. Now, both sides don't have a pi, so I don't think I'm going to divide both sides by pi. I can if I want to, but what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to multiply 7 and pi. So 7 times pi okay. So I now have 197.9 is equal to 21.9911 r squared. So just like yesterday, or just like the previous lesson, we're going to take this out 4 decimal places. Now I have to isolate the r squared. So the opposite of multiplying by 21.9911 is dividing by 21.9911. That's going to cancel, and you get r squared is equal to, so I'm going to go over on my calculator here, and I like using the answer function. So 197.9 divided by, and instead of retyping the 21.9911, I'm going to go Control Answer and get my answer that way. So I'm basically getting 8.9990, which hopefully you recognize is about 9. And I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of this side, the square root of this side. The square root undoes the square, and this just becomes r. And on the other side, if you want, I can do the square root function. So I can hit Control Square Root. And again, you could use the answer function if you want, square root of the answer. And that's going to give me 2.99 and so on. So 2.9998, and it's going to ask me to round to the nearest whole centimeter, so r is approximately 3 centimeters. Okay, what do you think? It's the same idea as our previous lesson with finding height, just at the end we're going to have to take the square root of both sides. Let's try another example. What is the radius of a cone that has a volume of 603.2 centimeters cubed and a height of 12 centimeters? Round to the nearest tenth of a centimeter. Okay, I'm looking for radius. My shape is a cone. They've given us the volume, and they've given the height. Let's use our formula. Volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. Our volume is 603.2 is equal to 1/3 times pi times radius times the height of 12. Okay. Now I would like to do just a, and that is radius squared. I think what I'd like to do is do a little simplifying here to make my life a little easier. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes in there 4 times. So now on my calculator, all I have to do is 4 times pi. So that's going to give me, don't want to change that. So now I have 603.2 is equal to 12.5663 r squared. Now the opposite of multiplying by 12.5663 is dividing by that. So you can divide that on your calculator, or if you want, let's go 603.2 divided by, and I'm going to go with the answer again. I like using that function. So it looks like I'm getting 48.00, I think that's 17, or it's 11. Let me double check that. All right, so that would be 48.0011 is equal to r squared, and I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So again, I think what I'm going to do is hit my square root symbol. I'll use my answer function if I can. And I'm getting r is approximately 6.928, and that's enough for me to round it here. So r is approximately, I'm rounding this digit, so I look at the 2, it's 5 or more. Nope, it's not 5 or more, so I let it rest. So 6.9, and that would be centimeters. Okay, let's try another one. The volume of a cylinder is 471.2 cubic millimeters. So we have a cylinder, and we know the volume. The height is 6 millimeters. What's the radius? And we're rounding to the nearest tenths place. All right, so a cylinder. V is equal to pi r squared h. So I'm going to take the volume, put it in place of the V. So 471.2 is equal to pi times r squared times the height, which is 6. So what I'm going to do on my calculator right now is I'm going to multiply 6 times pi. So 6 times pi. Okay. So 18.8495, it looks like, r squared is equal to 471.2. And now the opposite of multiplying by 18.8495 is dividing by that. So that's going to cancel. On this side you're left with r squared. On the other side I'm going to do 471.2 divided by my answer, and I'm getting 24.9979. So 24.9979. And now the opposite of squaring is square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So r is equal to, actually I should say r is approximately 2. Ooh, that's a bad symbol. Let's try that again. Alright, I'm going to do square root, use my answer function again, and I'm getting 4.999, which means your radius is approximately, so I'm going to round this 9, I look at the digit thereafter, and it's 5 or more, I'm going to raise the score, so this becomes a 10, so this becomes 5.0 centimeters. So 5.0 centimeters. And you do have to have a digit in the tens place. Alright, we're going to try another one here. This one says the volume of a cone is 600 pi. Now notice this one has a pi symbol on it, and the height is 18 millimeters. What is the radius? Okay, so cone is V is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. So I'm going to put 600 pi here is equal to 1/3 pi times r squared times 18. Now I'm going to do a little canceling here because I can, a little simplifying. I see that I have a pi on both sides. My preference is to get rid of that right away. So now I have 600 is equal to 1/3 r squared times 18. Now I'm going to do a little simpling again. That's a 3 on the bottom, that's 18 on the top. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 18 6 times. So 600 is equal to 6r squared. Divide both sides by 6, and I get 100 is equal to r squared. Now you might be able to tell me right from the get-go, what squared is 100? So what times itself is 100? If you're not sure, you can punch it in your calculator. You would type in the square root of 100, and that would be 10. So r is equal to 10. And that would be millimeters. Now, if you had a hard time with the work that I did here, that's perfectly fine. You could have actually said 600 pi is equal to 1/3. Oh, running out of space there. I'll go back to this. Pi r squared times 18, and actually put in your calculator and multiplied all 3 of those. You could have actually multiplied the 600 and the pi. So if you would have multiplied 600 pi, you would have had 1884.955 and so on. Is equal to, and then you could have typed in your 1/3 times pi times 18 and came up with 18.849 r squared, and divided both sides by that. So there were other ways that you could have done what I did here. So I did it in pieces. I personally thought that what I did originally was a little bit more easier to follow, but if you're not very good at doing that, you may want to just get a decimal for this, get a decimal for this, and do it just like the other problems. Okay, let's try one more here. So we have the volume of a cone is 58.9 centimeters, cubic centimeters, so we're talking about a cone. The height is 9. What is the radius rounded to the nearest tens place? So volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. So 58.9 is equal to 1/3 times pi times 9, whoops, I forgot my r squared. Let me put that in there. Okay, now you can punch this in your calculator, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 3 goes in there once, 3 goes in there 3 times. So now all I have is 3 times pi. So 58.9 is equal to 3 times pi. So I got to do 3 times pi. So that's 9.4247. And that's going to be r squared. The opposite of multiplying by that is dividing by that. So I'm going to go 58.9 divided by, I'm going to use my answer function, and I get 5.2494. And actually it looks like I copied that wrong. This would actually be a 6 is equal to r squared. Now the opposite of squaring a number is square root. So you're going to take the square root of both sides. The square will undo the square root. So r is approximately, so I'm going to do square root. Again, I'll use my answer function. And I'm getting 2.499, which means r is approximately 2. Okay, we're going to round the 4. Whoops. And that's going to give me 2.5. And this would be centimeters. Okay. Your independent practice is going to be to practice 8 problems. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start with the odds first, check your answers, and then if you still have time left in your 20 minutes of independent work, I'd like you to go back and do some of the evens. So the video we're counting as 20 minutes, and I want you to do 20 minutes of working on the 8 practice problems. So 20 and 20. So let's see how many of the 8 problems you can do in 20 minutes. Again, check your work. You will need a calculator. There's office hours tomorrow if you'd like to contact me, and good luck.